everybody. So I'm really excited to tell you about the latest Disney live action version of Cinderella. No surprise to any of my viewers that I am not a big fan of these live action retellings of fairy tales. In fact, I really hated Maleficent. It was my least favorite movie of the year last year. In fact, I did a little Maleficent rant, which you definitely want to check out. And I just thought it completely massacred the original and took one of the greatest villains in Disney history and made her into a whiny victim. It might surprise you that I was oddly, cautiously optimistic about the latest Cinderella, because if you're a longtime fan of the channel, you'll know that I also am a huge Cinderella fan. I did a series when I very first started the channel, Defending Cinderella. And I talked about 4 different versions of Cinderella: the 1950 Disney animated version, the 1955 Leslie Caron version called The Glass Slipper. It has 2 full ballets. I talked about the 1978 The Slipper and the Rose with the Sherman Brothers songs. That's really funny. And then I talked about the more recent version, I think 1998, I want to say, is Ever After with Drew Barrymore and Angelica Houston. And they each have sort of their own little spin on it. They each have a little bit different things to say. And I just really like the character because I think that she's a great example of having hope and faith, and that good things will happen to you in life if you don't give up. And a lot of people are like, oh, she's rescued or whatever. But I really like that message, actually, because first of all, she's rescued by a woman. She's not rescued by the prince. She's rescued by the fairy godmother. And the prize isn't really the prince. The prize is getting out of this horrible situation. And I think we all have moments in our life where we need rescue and where we need help. And I think if you're a good person and you lead a good life, then you have those people in your life who do come to your rescue in those moments. I've certainly seen that in my life, and it's just something I think lovely about the message. And I think we can use a little bit more hope in the world. And so I'm really happy that a whole new generation of girls will get their Cinderella. And this one has a lot of really interesting choices that they made. One of the cool things, it's kind of the same when I watched a whole bunch of different versions of Christmas Carol. You get to see sort of different choices in the way they do things and how it gives it a little bit of a different message. And that can be really interesting, I think. And it's sort of similar here, since I'm so familiar with the other versions and the different messages that they show, and different strengths and weaknesses in all of them. It was really interesting to watch this one and see some of the different strengths and maybe a few little weaknesses, but overall I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great film. I wouldn't be surprised if it's my favorite of the year. We'll see what happens, but you know, I love Cinderella and I thought they did a great job. This version is directed by Kenneth Branagh, and I think he did a similar thing that he did with the Thor movie that he directed, and maybe Much Ado About Nothing, and some of the other Shakespeare films that are a little lighter, where he does a good job of getting you to think about the moral of the story without like beating it over the head. And definitely the message that this version of Cinderella wants you to learn is that kindness and courage are what is most important, and that's what saves Cinderella. You know, like I said, some versions it's faith, some versions it's hope, some versions it's friendship, some versions it's independence and a strong will, like in Ever After, and a keen intellect. It just depends on the version. But this one, it's definitely, that's the message, is to develop kindness and courage, which I think is a great message for girls. Really interesting because it spends a lot of time with Cinderella and her mother and father, and they're the ones who teach her about kindness and courage. And you get to see, she actually is pretty much I'm trying to remember how old. She's a girl when her mother dies, but then her father is single for quite a while, and Lily James, the actress who plays Cinderella, is actually in those scenes. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a version of Cinderella where the kind of the adult character, the adolescent, is already developed. Like, usually she's a child when the father dies. And in this one, they actually show some scenes of the father interacting with the stepmother and the stepsisters, and how the stepmother is trying to kind of raise the name of the house, and you can see that she's very jealous of his love for Cinderella and of her mother and how he idolizes her. And she's very jealous of that, we learn later, because that's what she had with her first husband, which was interesting. And so I liked that. That was really cool that they had more time, I thought, with the father and the mother than I've seen in any other version of Cinderella. That was really neat. And they also spend quite a bit of time with the prince in this version. It's definitely, you get to know him, and he wants to marry for love. He's very independent. Played by Richard Madden, who I hadn't seen before. I guess he's on Game of Thrones or something. And I thought he was very good. He was very likable. I couldn't find his name, but the captain, there's actually a pretty diverse cast for a fairy tale, which was cool. He's an African American who I really thought was funny and cute. And there were a couple other African American characters, which I thought was cool. And I liked that the prince is the one that suggests to the king that they invite all the eligible maidens to the ball. And the reason why he does that is because he met Cinderella when they were out hunting, and she convinces him to not kill the stag in their hunt because she loves animals. And in this version, instead of the mice singing and her talking to the mice, they just kind of chirp and squeak at her. But they definitely have like a really cute little bond, and I really enjoyed that. And she kind of has that relationship with all the animals. He's really transfixed by her and how beautiful she is and lovely. So that's why he suggests to the king to invite all the eligible maidens to the ball. And so he knows that he will have to marry somebody at the ball, but he's hoping that she will be there and that he can pick her and convince the king, which is still sort of in doubt, but he's hoping that he can convince the king to allow him to marry this country girl. He kind of has this dream of marrying a country girl, which I thought was cute. And so they announce the ball, and I thought it was interesting the way that basically they make it seem kind of like the stepmother, like when the father died, she had to cut back. And so they fired all of the staff, which I never seen any other Cinderella. And so that they kind of created a little bit of an out, I thought, for her, which was interesting. But they kind of don't, because she's still really controlling and very jealous. So and she's more jealous of like her lot in life and what happened to her, and why couldn't she have had the happily ever after? Is sort of the end message with the mother, which I thought was really, really good. It was an interesting take on it. And Cate Blanchett is so good as the Wicked Stepmother. She's so good. And she's just magnetic every time you see her. And she's still a tiny bit likable in all of the awfulness. And she's just great. So I really liked the two girls that played the stepsisters too. They were really good. Sophia McShera from Downton Abbey is one of the stepsisters, and Holiday Granger is her name, are the stepsisters. And I thought they were really funny. They were very, very good. I was kind of hoping they would have, in the ball scene, I was hoping they'd have like the big bustles like they do in the Disney version. That would have been really funny. But they do a good job, I thought, of little homages to the original animated version. And so that was really nice to see. And I thought it was funny. It was sweet. I thought Lily James was great. She reminded me of a young Kate Winslet. She was so good. She was much better in this than she is in Downton Abbey, in my opinion. And overall, I was really charmed by it. I thought it looked great. It's really beautiful. The CGI, I thought they did the CGI really, really well, especially like the transformations of the mice into the horses and the lizards into the footmen, that and the geese into the driver. That was really well done. You could actually see like the ears changing of the horses, and I don't know, it just looked really realistic. And I thought that Helena Bonham Carter was really fun as the fairy godmother. She probably wasn't my favorite of all time, but she was charming, and she wasn't overly Helena Bonham Carter-ish. And made me glad that it was Kenneth Branagh, even though that was her ex, which must have been interesting. But I was glad that it was him directing and not Tim Burton, because I think it would have been all white face and all just annoying. But I thought that it was done really well. So overall, it's just really charming. It's really fun. It's not that long, so it's a quick little movie to take your girls. They will love it. And I think that there'll be some stuff that the boys will like too. I don't think it'd be a horrible sit for them. And it's just a great story. It's passed the test of time. And how can you go wrong with your girls learning a story about kindness and courage? That's a great thing, in my opinion. So I really recommend it. I give an A+. I think it's great. And I think you should go see it. And I think, like I said, it looks great. The costumes look beautiful. Beautiful set design. I think they did a great job. So yay. Let me know what you think. Put in your comments down below if you liked it. I'd love to hear. I will post a link in the description section to my blog, where I'll post a longer review, and post links to my other Cinderella series if you want to check out those, because I think they're really fun. So thanks. Bye.